Coming up next, get an intriguing look at the universe we live in with Scheme of Things, only on the Disney Channel.
How can this toy teach the principles of sound to someone who can't hear? It's the familiar thunder of hoofbeats. Or is it? What does the roar of an ocean wave share with the roar of a jet plane? We're about to find out with a visit to the sound factory called Planet Earth. Sights and sounds of an average day's activities here at Epcot Center in Orlando, Florida. All that sound and all that music is being coordinated right here at Epcot Central, the computer center that's located in the Communicore Pavilion. These operators are controlling and coordinating every attraction, every show, every audio event, and every video event in all of Epcot Center. The commands and voice tracks of the audio animatronics, the soundtracks of movies, are all stored here in the control center on 1-inch magnetic tape. It's a synchronized poem of magical sound. Epcot Center has many fascinating methods of reproducing sound, but Cynthia Pollard has discovered some ways to actually show us sound. Sounds that can be seen as well as heard.
How do we experience sound? By hearing it, of course. Yet there are many people who discover what sound is in a completely different way. People who are deaf or have serious hearing impairments have mastered unique ways to discern sound without hearing. They've discovered how to see and feel sound. That's what's happening here.
These dancers are deaf. So is the band. But what's even more remarkable is that even though they can't hear, they've managed to learn a great deal about sound. In fact, they can teach us an awful lot about sound.
These dancers and musicians are students at Gallaudet College, which is part of an educational complex for the hearing impaired that runs from nursery school through university level. We have come here because, ironically, it's a great place for us to begin our journey into sound.
Contrary to a popular misconception, most deaf people do have some hearing. It's a little bit distorted, but it sounds a lot like this. Modern-day deaf education is trying to find new ways to better help students use the hearing that they do have.
That job has been made easier by advanced technology that has resulted in vastly improved hearing aids. Because the students have hearing problems, the teaching staff has had to discover new ways to demonstrate the scientific principles of sound. One of the most innovative programs is at the Model Secondary School for the Deaf in Washington, D.C. It was developed by Norman Letterman, who used his extensive knowledge of electronics to develop a multimedia approach to explore the scientific principles of sound.
Many students have come in and totally turned off to sound because they've never really been able to experience sound, to understand what different sounds are and how they relate and how they're made. So the whole purpose of this room, the Sound Lab, was to make sound accessible, to grab the interest of the students, to make it something that's exciting and fun. Remember the drum? Okay. Sound can basically be described as air set in motion by vibration.
A graphic way to demonstrate this important principle is by placing a drum in front of a speaker. A loud tone is played over the speaker. That sound makes the air by the speaker move, pushing the drum away. An ingenious way to prove that sound waves are moving air. Another example of that principle? Watch what happens to this tambourine when it is placed on a special table. The table has a speaker inside it. When that speaker begins to hum, the resonance makes the table and the tambourine vibrate. These rhythmic vibrations are an important factor in understanding sound because they show us that it is not only moving air, but air that moves in a definite pattern. To illustrate how these sound vibrations or waves behave, Norman uses a slinky toy. When he shakes the toy, it moves with the same motion as a sound wave. The faster it moves, the more frequent the vibrations become. This is a graphic demonstration of sound frequency. The greater the frequency of a sound wave, the higher the pitch or tone. A low-frequency sound wave, one with fewer vibrations, has a lower pitch.
What do you call this machine? Oscilloscope. Right. Okay, what does it do? Shows sound vibrations. Okay.
This oscilloscope is another way to demonstrate how the frequency of sound vibrations determines pitch. The smaller of the two tuning forks vibrates faster, so its pitch, or tone, is higher. The larger fork makes a slower vibration, and therefore a lower tone, as you can see on the scope. This is our first principle of sound.
We have here what's called a color organ. It shows, using colored lights, high-low frequencies. We're going to use that now. Starting with a low frequency. Higher frequency, higher, and highest frequency. Blue, green, yellow.
Sound frequencies are measured in hertz. Hertz are the number of cycles per second of a sound wave. As we discovered earlier, the higher the number of vibrations, the higher the pitch of the sound. That principle is demonstrated by this color organ. The red light equals approximately 50 hertz. The yellow light, 250 hertz. Green is 1200 hertz, and the blue light is 3200 hertz.
Intensity, power, loudness. Okay, second characteristic of sound.
The intensity of a sound does not change its frequency. The wave pattern, or hertz, remains constant no matter how loud or soft the sound gets.
Third important characteristic of sound is what? Time, rhythm. Right.
Time is demonstrated to the students by using a mechanical drum machine. In music, time simply means how often a sound is made and how long it lasts. By passing out instruments, we can practice keeping time or rhythm, which can be heard and also seen. And once we get the concept of the time down, we can move on to this. These deaf musicians and dancers may not hear clearly, but they understand the basic principles of sound. They know that sound is moving waves of air, and those waves have three basic characteristics. First, the frequency of a sound wave affects its pitch. Second, sound can be loud or soft. And third, all sound has its own rhythm. With this knowledge added to their own considerable natural abilities, these artists can move with the music, even though they can't hear it.
There's an old riddle that goes, if a tree falls in a forest and there's no one there to hear it, does the falling tree make a sound? The answer to the riddle lies in our definition of sound. As we just discovered, sound can be defined simply as vibrations, which we call sound waves. By that definition, the falling tree would make a sound, even if no one heard it. But some philosophers say that hearing is an essential aspect of sound. Using their definition, no sound would be made by the falling tree if nobody was there to hear it. But when someone is there to hear the sound, a complex yet delicate process takes place in our ears and brain. Dave Garrison leads us as we explore the inner workings of the ear. Sound is a big part of our lives, bigger, I think, than most people realize. And it all starts here, with the outer ear. Its cup-like shape helps capture sound vibrations. Those vibrations are carried through the auditory canal to the eardrum, which reverberates to the sound waves and carries the sound to the middle ear. In the middle ear, the sound is picked up by the auditory ossicles, 3 bones which are named the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. They act as a relay for the sound and carry it to the inner ear. Here they enter the cochlea, a snail-shaped device which is filled with fluid and contains the organ of Corti. The organ of Corti consists of thousands of little receptors, tiny hair cells. These hair cells vibrate in tune with the sounds and transmit them to the auditory nerve, which in turn carries them to the brain. The human hearing mechanism is obviously complex, but by some standards, it's actually crude. Birds, for instance, hear the same range of sounds we do, but can detect the fluctuations in a bird song 10 times faster than we can. Even our best friends can show us a thing or two about hearing. This high-frequency whistle is child's play to Willie because he can hear twice the range of sounds that we can. But our hearing seems adequate for our purposes, gathering vast amounts of data. And our hearing is second only to our eyesight as the sense that gives us the most information about the world in which we live. It's also a sense that in this modern technological world is often subjected to stresses that it wasn't originally designed for. The loudness or intensity of a sound is measured in decibels, named for Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone. Think about the quietest sound you can hear. For me, it's the soft breeze by a mountain pond. This sound measures 1 decibel, which is the softest sound that the human ear can detect. Sound 10 decibels higher is 10 times as strong. For instance, a 10 decibel sound could be a babbling brook. If that stream were rushing harder, it could move up to 30 or 40 decibels. A city street with busy traffic is 80 decibels. Sounds of a jackhammer at 100 to 120 decibels and firecrackers at 140 decibels are more than annoying. They are dangerous sounds and can injure the ear at its weakest spot, the sensitive and delicate hair cells that line the organ of Corti in the inner ear. So why aren't we swamped under an ocean of sound? Of course, some sounds are too soft to hear, or their frequencies are too high or too low for our ear to discern. But our brain is important too, acting as sort of an intelligent filter, selecting the sounds that it wants to hear and fading or suppressing the other sounds into the background. Otherwise, things might sound more like this. As you can tell, my voice is a little more difficult to hear now because I'm competing equally with traffic and construction, trucks, buses, all the sounds we associate with intersections. Well, let's be thankful that nature allows us to hear selectively because we're constantly walking through a sea of sound. But what about other environments? What about the sounds of the sea? The ocean, often thought of as a silent world, is actually a world teeming with sounds. In fact, the largest mammal of us all is one of its most vocal members. We are hearing the song of the humpback whale, nature's greatest long-distance communicator. Because sound travels 4 times more efficiently through water than it does through air, and because whales have extremely acute hearing, they are actually able to communicate with other whales up to 1,000 miles away. But the whale's cousin, the porpoise, has an even more fundamental use for sound. They use it to find out where they are and where they're going. Porpoises are highly skilled at sound seeing, or echolocation. Research has shown that they send out bursts of high-frequency sound that may be 3 to 8 times as high as the human ear can hear. And they listen for the echo. They can navigate through obstacle courses in darkened pools, and more importantly, they can locate fish in total darkness and murky waters. But sea creatures are not alone in using sound for seeing. Like porpoises, bats emit very high-frequency sounds. By listening to the echoes, these flying animals can locate and catch insects for food. And porpoises and bats aren't the only ones to have found ultra-high-frequency sounds to be a valuable tool. During the early part of this century, a French physicist developed sonar to detect the location of submarines in the ocean. Since that time, ultrasound has become a valuable scientific tool, especially in medicine. Today, ultrasonic technology allows doctors to actually look inside the human body without using surgery or radiation. Over here is a living picture of my abdominal area. This is Dr. Graham Summer from Stanford University Medical Center.
Now we're looking at the liver, and we can see some black structures in it that are vessels. This black structure over here is the gallbladder that I'm pointing to. I don't see any gallstones in it. And this round structure below the liver is the right that.
How can you get a picture with just sound?
The sound waves are emitted by a generator in the probe that I'm holding. They go into the body and they're reflected, and the reflected sound waves are detected electronically and made into the pictures that we're seeing on the screen.
These pictures are invaluable to the medical profession. They're used for routine checkups like I'm getting now, but they have even more spectacular applications. This is a sound picture of the head of a living baby inside its mother's womb, looking from the top down. They're using electronic calipers to measure its size to be sure that it's developing properly. This ultrasonic technique is more accurate than X-rays for fetal exams and doesn't expose mother and child to harmful radiation emissions. So, like the porpoise, we too have learned to see with sound, and it's helping to improve the quality of our lives. Did you get that? Well, if U.S. Census figures are correct, only some of us understood those sounds. That's because only a portion of the American people speak German. Many Germans also speak English, but obviously not all of them. We're about to find out how movie experts dub in dialogue for people who don't speak English, and how those same experts shape all of the other sounds that turn a moving picture into a picture that moves. Here's Dave Garrison at the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California. Is that Dopey and his pals speaking German? That's right. We're watching sound experts make the whole cast of Snow White fluent in German, so that this classic can be enjoyed by a whole new generation. For these wizards of sound, it's easy, because the sound for all movies is recorded on many different sound tapes or tracks. The music has one track, the voice is another, and the various background sounds could take up several more. So it's no problem to replace one voice track with another. The sound mixers are supplementing their finely tuned ears with extremely sophisticated computer equipment, which allows them to control the intensity, frequency, and rhythm of all the sounds in the picture. But think how differently something sounds in a small room than it does in a large hall. That's why this painstaking work is done in a big, empty theater instead of a small studio. So the surprise of finding Pinocchio speaking Japanese tells us something important about the movies. Although they're called motion pictures, since 1927, sound has been much more than a silent partner in the movie business. What would you do if you were making a movie and the script called for the sound of an airplane propeller? Now, this sound had to start and stop exactly when a propeller started and stopped on screen. That would make it difficult to record at the airport, and the plane's a little too big to fit in the studio. The sound man's answer? A ruler and a piece of This sound and many more are here at this Foley stage on the Disney movie lot.
This look like a feather duster?
Mm-hmm.
Shut your eyes.
Okay.
Listen.
It becomes a bird.
Right.
That's terrific.
Right.
Is that used quite a lot?
Sure. We don't want to bring birds in here.
That's true.
To catch them again.
Meet Joe Parker, chief of Disney's Foley department. What is a Foley stage?
A Foley stage is where we come inside after a production is finished and recreate sounds, usually to picture, in sync with the picture.
Here's the way they work. The Foley artists watch the silent picture on a screen in front of them. In this case, it's a scene from Mickey's Christmas Carol. Their job is to put in all the appropriate noises. Here's how they do it. And here's how that scene works with their Foley sound effects. The art and the science of Foley starts with the artist looking at the picture, analyzing what kind of sound is needed, and creating it for the microphone. The key word is creating, because the sound we finally hear usually isn't what it seems. That's great. Will any coconut make that sound?
No, these have been taken and put, there's sponge that's been placed inside with tar so that it gives it a heavier sound. When we do Foley, our intention is to make it sound real. We use our visual sense so much in life, and we don't rely on our ear sense.
Another example of the phenomenon is demonstrated by Wayne Allwine, a Foley artist who also doubles as the modern-day voice of Mickey Mouse.
What's it sound like?
Bag of coins?
Bag of coins, right? Here's your coin. That's a brass bullet casing. And the reason why we use brass bullet casings is real coins don't record well. If you had seen these brass bullet shells before you heard them, and I said to you, here's our coins, you'd say, oh no, I've got to have coins. And that's happened before. We've had producers do the same thing. You walk out like this and say, how does that sound? And they go, I love it.
Foley uses a wide range of weird devices, a collection of contraptions that only a Foley artist could love. This thunderboard is a striking example. These oddball items aren't built for looks, but for sound. What would you use to make an eerie sound? Well, all you need is some tin cans, some drum heads, a little bit of string, and you get a pretty creepy sound. These strings, pulleys, and wood boxes, the secret ingredients of a squeaky door, have probably been around as long as Jack Foley, the early practitioner of the art which now bears his name. And what do you imagine they're using to make an ocean? Nails and peas. Hundreds of nails are hammered to the inside of this drum, and the peas simply roll freely inside. Creating sound effects obviously takes imagination, but there are sound scientific principles behind each contraption. When Joe makes his Big Ben chime, he's using old auto brake drums, but a closer examination reveals they've been doctored. Each drum has been carefully drilled with different size holes. These holes change the pitch of the drums and allow Joe to recreate the clock's famous chimes. This cluttered storeroom looks like somebody's getting ready for a garage sale. But believe it or not, each one of these items was a movie star at one time. Take this beat-up old xylophone here. It doesn't look like much, but it was the voice of a character seen by millions of people each week on television. Listen. That was the bell-like voice of Tinker Bell on Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. While wandering around the Foley storeroom with Wayne, I'm struck by how many sound effects are made from household items.
Got a bear.
A bear? That doesn't look like a bear.
It's a very thin bear. Let me give you a snore first.
Should I close my eyes again?
Listen.
Okay. Okay.
I'm going to put it through here.
Everything's fair game here. A balloon with a BB inside becomes a tire coming off its rim. And the sound of fire? A bundle of bamboo.
Well, Dave, I think you qualify now for our apprentice traineeship program.
Oh, yeah?
So, fellas, Dave's going to join us in a sound effect, and we want the audience to use their imagination and tell us what we're making here.
What's my job? What's my job?
Okay, you pick that instrument up there.
Very specialized.
When I point to you, you do it.
Okay.
Okay? Ready? Here we go, gentlemen.
Doing Foley is fun, but when you add the need for split-second timing and just the right sound, it's time for the sound scientists to go to work. These artists are creating the opening for Mickey's Christmas Carol. The teamwork that they display in doing the scene reminds me of musicians in rehearsal. Their instruments may be made out of cornstarch, but the final sound is as carefully orchestrated as any symphony. Later, I had a chance to ask Joe about the future.
Computerized electronics are making sound effects more easily manipulated. We can do more with an originally recorded sound by using electronics to enhance it or change it, so that the degree of variety is becoming endless in what you can do with sound effects. It's only left up to a person's imagination as what he can do with it.
Mickey's Christmas Carol is now finished. Only Joe and the other sound specialists know what they've used to give us our movie soundtrack. But thanks to their understanding of how we hear, our time at the movies is not only a feast for the eyes, but also for the ears.
For the past half hour, we've been discovering new ways to visualize sound and how to control and coordinate it with computers. We've seen how scientific principles are helping make tomorrow sound better than today. And we've seen how the subject of sound raises a lot more questions than answers. We'll be exploring some more questions and discovering some new answers next time on The Scheme of Things. I'm Mark Shaw. Thanks for joining us.